So let me get into the 5 most important things that you need to know if you own or carry a firearm in this state. Number 1, this I kind of summarize in 3 words, just shut up. Now, I'd love to move to number 2. It would save us a lot of time, because number 1's pretty simple, right? Anybody confused about number 1, the just shut up rule?
Here's today's conflicted question. Our panel will answer this question at the end of this video. The signs of the impending collapse have run rampant on the internet. You have been paying attention and you know the collapse will begin tomorrow. You are stocking up at your local big box store on last minute preps that your family will need. While shopping, you notice all of the people around you and you look into their baskets. No one is preparing for what will start tomorrow. Would you share your knowledge with the others? Why or why not?
And we're back, and man, we have got a kick-ass panel today. Y'all recognize Dr. Jen, who's back again, our Mad Bomber, Mike Sterling, and we've got Mark from Attorneys for Freedom, Attorneys on Retainer. Mark, I really appreciate you taking time out of your super busy schedule to join us. As you may know, our mission at Survival Dispatch is to dispatch information so our fellow Americans and friends of Americans can survive in these very uncertain times. And a lot of us are aware of these issues with self-defense insurance and how it can be very unceremoniously canceled if somebody takes a plea deal, which my understanding is that's around 95% of the time in criminal charges. So let's just jump right in and tell me about Attorneys on Retainer, what y'all are offering and why it's better than what the other guys have out there.
Well, first, let me say it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's an honor. I love what you guys do. I love the whole concept of being prepared and self-reliant because, as we all know, the world is a very unstable place. The Attorneys on Retainer program is really a creature of the law firm I started 27 years ago called the Attorneys for Freedom. You can check us out, attorneysforfreedom.com. We are a hardcore pro-freedom. We're all freedom activists. Our law firm is pro-freedom. I've been giving hardcore speeches about freedom on all issues, for all people, at all times. I think I like to say it like this. We believe that you, as a competent adult, are the iron-fisted dictator of your body, property, money, and time. Absolutely no exceptions to that rule whatsoever. I've been approached by some of these other companies over the years to be a participant and to help people when they were in these shooting cases. I've asked sometimes how the terms are of these programs, and it always struck me, and I don't want to label all of them like this, but some of them are just BS. It's really, they're pushing stuff that I don't think brings any value at all to the people. I'm talking some of the discount programs and things like that. So this got my wheels turning years ago. I thought, I've got a very well-respected law firm. My law firm, we're not there just to hold people's hands and walk them through the system. We're fighters. We like to get involved and mix it up and be creative and bring interesting motions and fight. We're not afraid to appeal, take it as high as possible. I've sued the government before. I've sued governors before. Not afraid of that stuff. Well, we formed our own program because what occurred to us over time was these other programs, almost all of them are insurance-backed. And there's a public policy rule in the United States that you cannot insure an intentional tort or a criminal act. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. But we're criminal defense lawyers, so we can defend people even if they do commit criminal acts. And that essentially gets to what some of the problems are with these insurance-based, all of them, all these insurance-based companies, because what they say essentially is if you're committing a crime, there's no coverage for you. And then where they hide behind is they say, well, okay, you're charged with a crime, but that doesn't mean you've actually committed a crime. Well, this requires an initial determination, right? Really from the insurance company. Did the person act in a justified act of self-defense, or is it a criminal act? If they decide it's a criminal act, you're out. Well, guess who thinks it's a criminal act? The prosecutor, the grand jury. There's a good argument. If they wanted, in 100% of the cases, they could say, we've decided it's a criminal act. Sorry, we're not going to cover you.
Quick question. So are you saying that regardless of whether the person is convicted or not, early in the process, these insurance underwriters for self-defense, if they determine that the client is guilty of their own accord, that they can just say there's no benefits, too bad, so sorry?
All companies they're a little bit different, so I don't want to lump them all together. But if you're with a company, take for example the USCCA, right? One of the bigger companies, United States Concealed Carry Association. They have an insurance company. If you look at their policy, which you can get online, and you download it, you just simply read it. I think it's on page 2 of it. It talks about exclusions, and what it says is criminal acts are excluded. So yeah, that means that if somebody, and I don't know who the decision maker is over there, but if somebody, presumably at the insurance company, says, we've decided that this person who's charged with a crime, said another way, the cop thinks he's guilty, the prosecutor thinks he's guilty, probably a grand jury thinks he's guilty. Doesn't mean he is, but they're on firm ground if they decide, what, we think he did commit a criminal act. They have every right under their contract to decline the case. Even if they don't decline the case, right? If you take a plea at some point, and of course, the same company, I don't mean to pick on USCCA, but they put a specific video out on this very point where they say, if you take a plea, all coverage ends. Well, okay, 95% plus of all cases in the criminal justice system accept a plea for some reason. And that doesn't mean it's a bad resolution. You could be charged with first-degree murder. Maybe you accept a plea to a misdemeanor. That's going to be a plea of guilty. And according to what their video says and what their contract says, again, if you read the contract, specifically says that all coverage ends. And some of these have a recoupment provision as well, which says if we expended funds on the contract, we have a right to ask for the money back. Now, they'll tell you, well, we don't do that. Okay, they could if they wanted to. I don't know if they do that or not. I can only report what the contract actually says. So even if you run the gauntlet, right, where they say, okay, we think it's not a criminal act, you're charged, but you're presumed innocent, so we're going to proceed. Then you've got to run the gauntlet of all these other exclusions. And different companies have different exclusions, but very common exclusions are things like the weapon is illegal, the incident happened in a place that's now a sensitive area where guns are prohibited, maybe domestic violence, it rises out of one of those. It's an illegal weapon, you're prohibited possessor. There are many of these exclusions. We don't have any of them. We don't care if it's a criminal act. In our program, if you intended to act in self-defense, even if you blew it, even if it's a criminal act, as long as you're charged with a crime or you're worried about being charged with a crime, because oftentimes it takes a while to be charged with a crime, and the thing happened after you signed up, you check those 3 boxes, we'll defend you, I'll bring my team in, and we're going to do a kick-ass job for you.
The thing that makes me crazy about this is if the USCCA or whoever makes the claim that they have never used this clawback clause, if they've never used it, then why in the heck is it in the contract? And that would make me incredibly nervous. So for me, like, I want peace of mind that I'm going to be protected. So I do have one question for you. So the criminal case is just the start. So first you're charged criminally, and then you'll have a civil suit potentially for wrongful death or whatever. Do you guys also cover that subsequent civil suit?
It's an excellent question. I don't think any program would be complete without that coverage, right? So we have a civil department at our law firm. We will jump in, we'll defend you, we'll take the case all the way through trial. We won't charge a dime on that. We'll cover the experts, we'll cover the investigators. I'm putting together an all-star team. We can do all 50 states. So yeah, we need a local attorney. We cover the cost of that, but which I like that because it allows me to get whoever I think is the real all-star in that state. And I can tell, like you can tell as a medical doctor in 5 minutes when you're on the phone with another doctor, the extent of their competency. It doesn't take me very long to figure out if I got a real hardcore criminal defense lawyer. If we're going to team up with someone locally, we want the best person we can get. So we put our team together. We'll fight the thing all the way through trial. The person who we are defending doesn't have to put anything up. We're going to fight as hard as we can. If they want to take a plea, fine. They want to go to trial, fine. If they lose, we handle the appeal. If they get sued, we handle the civil case all the way through a jury trial. Now, I'll point out, to be fair, because one thing about us, we act with very high character in everything that we do. So we endeavor to be very transparent. There are some advantages to the insurance company, right? If they cover you and you don't lose your coverage, they will pay that civil judgment at the end. I'm a law firm, not an insurance company. So if you get a civil judgment at the end, we don't cover that. Okay, that's one of the downsides of our program, but at least you don't lose your coverage if you want to take a plea or you actually blew it and you think it's a self-defense shoot, but you don't get to pick the time and place when these things happen. What if it's the middle of the night and you were sleeping?
So I'm not an attorney, but work with me here. Usually a civil case follows a criminal one, correct? In most cases?
Sometimes the civil case will start before the criminal case is over. And it's very common in such a case where the civil cases stay because the defendant still has a right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment. They can't be deposed in the civil case. So usually that's the long-winded way of saying civil case follows criminal case.
Well, here's my question. So somebody is in a citizen-involved shooting. They have coverage through USCCA, let's say. The insurance company makes a decision on their own that that person is guilty of criminal conduct, cancels their policy, or the person takes a plea deal and it's something innocuous, so cancels their coverage. Now they face a civil lawsuit. They have no legal representation unless they pay for it out of their own pocket. And let's say they get to the end of the civil lawsuit and the jury or the judge says, well, I decide in favor of the defendant. That defendant is still out their entire legal defense in that case, correct?
That's the way I read the contract. You have to ask them, but they're very clear. If the criminal acts are excluded, if you take a plea, you're out, all coverage ends. So they offer great coverage on the civil case and pay the judgment, but if they decline coverage, you got nothing. So that's the problem with, and that's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing. I get around that because I'm not an insurance company. I'm a law firm. And people have asked me, Mark, how can you afford to do this? $100 to sign up, $35 a month. How can you do this? Well, the answer is I don't have to come out of my pocket to pay for the most expensive part of the case, which is the legal fees, right? Those could be $200,000 if the case goes to trial. My entire legal team is on salary. I got a firm that's up and running for 27 years now. I've been practicing 30 years. We've been handling major felony cases the entire time. I've tried many first-degree murder, death penalty cases. I've done lots of those. We've done every kind of major felony many, many times over. Tons of gun cases, self-defense cases, as you can imagine. Those are among our favorite types of cases. We've done many appeals. I've argued before the Ninth Circuit several times. I've been in front of other circuits as well. Like, we've done everything many times. And for me to bring that kind of legal defense, I just got to tell my team, hey guys, we got another case. I don't have to write a check to some lawyer. So I don't have the incentive that the insurance company has to sort of deny the claim because they're going to write a big check to some lawyer.
Well, as soon as insurance gets involved, that's got bad karma on it. I've had multiple lawsuits over the years from MVAs and things like that. And insurance is the only type of business that never loses money because whatever they pay out this year, they just tack it on to everybody's premiums next year and deny, right? It's I think of the insurance industry as being as crooked as a dog's hind leg, but that's just my standpoint.
And the other problem is, I can think of so many scenarios where you're not covered. So in fact, I just helped to defend a murder case of self-defense. It was self-defense, but they charged this kid with murder. He had been out at a bar and he'd had a couple or a few drinks. Yeah. And in most instances, he'd been denied. Or let's say you're in your home and you're having a dinner party and you've had some wine. Well, most states would say, you're not allowed to handle a weapon if you've been drinking. Or let's say you have a 30-round magazine in your gun. Any number of those things where you're totally justified, but the insurance company could come back and say, no, we're not going to help you because of X. All I did really at the beginning of this was start pulling the contracts for these various companies. People could go to our website. It's just attorneysonretainer.us. And you'll see I've done reviews of all the major companies. And all I really do is just pull down the contract and I read it. I say, here's what it says, because people don't normally read these contracts. And I will say with our contract, not only have we're getting ready to release a video, which is a full critique of the Attorneys on Retainer program, where I raise the issues
like I raised just now about we don't pay the civil judgment. There are a few other things I raised as well. But in our agreement, our fee agreement, when you sign up, we have a 1 hour plus long video that I literally read every word of the attorneys on retainer contract, and the parts that are more legalese, I say, okay, here's what this means. And everybody's got to say, I understand it, check the box, I got no questions, or check the box, I still got questions, I want to talk to a lawyer. So that way I know for sure every single person who's in attorneys on retainer really understands exactly what they got. We don't hide anything, everything's in the contract. We're very transparent, but we call them at my firm win-wins, because I don't do any deals with anybody unless it's a win-win. You don't want to be part of attorneys on retainer? No problem, no aggravation. You just call, you say, hey, whatever, I'm out, no problem. We'll refund you your money, you're out. Piece of cake.
I have a question for you, Mark. Do you cover all instances of self-defense? So let's say I'm going to court today to testify. As a matter of fact, and let's say I'm down by the courthouse and there's some big protest going on and I'm in my car, someone approaches with a gun or something like that. I'm afraid for my life. I gun it, I mow them down. Do you guys cover an instance like that, or is it just firearms?
No, that's an easy one that we definitely cover. It's not just firearms. It could be any weapon or no weapon at all. As long as you can, look, here are the 3 criteria. If you check these 3 boxes, no problem. Box number 1, you're charged with a crime. It could be a felony or a misdemeanor, or you're reasonably concerned about being charged with a crime, right? That covers the situation where something happened and you're not yet charged. So that's box number 1. Box number 2, the thing that happened after you signed up. That seems like a pretty obvious thing. You can't first have the problem, then sign up. And box number 3, you at least have to say in good faith to us, I tried to act in self-defense. Even if you blew it, it's not a problem for us. Why do we have that there? We have that there because what we don't want to cover is the gangster thug who wants to sign up in our program and go commit crimes and then have us represent them, or the person who's robbing the bank. But for somebody who's saying, look, I acted because I was in fear for my life, even if you blew it, right? Say you were in danger of an ordinary physical injury, and that's why you acted, but you used deadly physical force. We all know you can't do that. No problem. We would still cover you. Say you thought you were acting reasonably, but it turned out it was unreasonable. We call that imperfect self-defense. You've committed a crime, no problem for us, right? Any firearm, no firearm, any other weapon, no problem. Doesn't matter if there's alcohol involved, doesn't matter if you're in a sensitive place, doesn't matter with all of these various things. We have no exclusions because my team is actually excited about defending people. I got a group of lawyers who are wanting to get into court and mix it up. That's what my team does. I don't hire lawyers who want to hold hands and do plea agreements. Look, we will if it's in your interest because we always put the client first. We're lawyers first. But my team likes to go to trial. We fight with each other over who's going to get to try the case. You're going to get at least 2 lawyers from my firm on every case that goes to trial. No problem.
So if you have an instance where, let's say I use deadly force and I'm up in Washington State, I feel like they charge just about everyone with a crime. But so I come to you, I say, hey, Mark, this is what happened. I've prepaid. I was afraid for my life. So you go ahead and you take that case. They decide to not charge me, but a wrongful death suit comes. So there wasn't a criminal case, but there's a civil case.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. So the short answer is, yes, we'll defend you on the civil case, even though you haven't been charged, because you were reasonably concerned about being charged. No problem. But something else we do that I forgot to mention, we also will defend you as a victim. Say you weren't charged. Okay, if you were in a self-defense act and you weren't charged, there's a bad guy out there who you acted against. We will defend you. We'll go into court. We'll call that prosecutor. Different states have different victims' rights acts. We do this all the time where we represent the victim. We will go to court. We'll do our best to get the person charged. Of course, we don't control that, right? But if the bad guy gets charged, we'll show up in court. We'll assert your rights. If you think the plea is too light, we'll argue to the judge to reject the plea. If the judge has discretion at sentencing, and defense attorneys don't love it when I show up and start pounding on the lectern, asking for a tougher sentence and pointing out all the bad stuff about the defendant. But for us, look, we're lawyers first. We defend our client. So to my knowledge, We're the only program that will actually represent you as a victim, even if you don't get charged. No problem. We do it all the time.
So one more question. Let's say that I go on vacation. I'm going down on a mission to help build some wheelchair ramps in Belize with Mr. Brown from Aggressor Adventures. And I'm down there and some drunk comes up to me and tries to assault me, and I have to act in self-defense and I harm that person. I'm in a foreign country, but I'm a US national. Do you help with those?
No, you got me on that one. We could do to help you. We would do whatever we could to help you, but I don't think there's anything we can do to help you. You got to be charged in the United States because we just don't have. In fact, it raises a question. We're not admitted in every state. So some people say, hey, Mark, you're admitted in Arizona. How can you represent me in, say, Washington? Well, there's something called pro hoc vice, which I know about, but not everybody knows about. You have a Sixth Amendment right to the lawyer of your choice. It doesn't mean you just get anybody. There are some rules, right? You have to be a licensed attorney. You got to be in good standing. Of course, you got to pay the government a fee. The government does nothing without a fee. But you check a few simple boxes. We get a local attorney who we pay for. That's what I was talking about before, which gives us, look, if the person has a lawyer in their state who they say, Mark, this lawyer is the greatest. I love this lawyer. We're going to get that lawyer as long as that lawyer is agreeable. And then we can't force them to, but that'll be our first choice. But if you don't know who to get, I like that the best because it gives us carte blanche to go out there and find the best all-star hardcore, somebody who can add to the team. So we get that lawyer on board. They're our local counsel. They then file a motion to have us admitted pro hoc vice. We've done this on many occasions, never been denied. You actually have it right here. There's a case that I cite in our fee agreement where one person, they actually weren't denied pro hoc vice, but they were kicked out because they allegedly violated a local rule. And the Supreme Court said, sorry, reversible error. We don't even look at prejudice. You got a right to the lawyer of your choice, even a pro hoc vice counsel, and the court cannot unreasonably withhold that. So we feel very confident. We have no problems at all getting into any of the other states. And again, there is no time that I can think of over the last 25 or so years where we haven't had some case in some other states. So we love going to other states because us as criminal defense lawyers, it's fun for us to deal with slight differences in criminal procedure and some of the statutes. And it just is a nice change for us to do business in another state. And we're all students of the justice system. So there are things we like and don't like and how other states do business. But we're fired up to do this. My team is really, really excited about getting out there and representing people in these self-defense kind of cases.
So I met with your employee, Sarah, at SHOT Show.
Oh, okay.
Because just a little background, I am doing some producing for American Stories Entertainment in the military and law enforcement realms. And before Sheriff Mark Lamb started running for Senate, he and I were going to co-host a show called Lifeline, where we put people through a common scenario like a carjacking, something like that. And then we watch how things go. Things inevitably go south. We stop the action, rewind, train them up, and then put them back through the thing and see how they do. And I had wanted a few key sponsors. One at the time was USCCA. Another was Mantis, because I believe if you're going to carry concealed, you should have some practice shots before you put that gun on your belt or waistband or whatever, or backpack. And then the other was like other self-defense tools. But USCCA, I thought, had a great opportunity and just wasn't interested in it at all. And then since then, I found out about your firm and all of the problems with USCCA. That's why I met with Sarah. And one of the things that she told me that I found incredibly interesting and useful is that not only do you guys provide the legal services and advice and all of that, regardless of whether you had a beer or you weren't supposed to be carrying concealed or whatever, you're still going to represent that person. But you also do things that are really important psychologically. You'll clean up the biological mess. That is a horrible thing for a person to have to deal with. I just dealt with a person who came into the emergency department yesterday with a gunshot wound to the head. And let me tell you, for the people who see that and see the brain matter and things like that, it's very traumatic and disturbing. We shouldn't have to see stuff like that. I'm sure Mike has seen a lot of that, but most people haven't, and it's horrible. You just taken a life you didn't want to, and now you have to clean this up. So you guys provide that service, and then you also provide some counseling services as well for the PTSD that a lot of people will experience from that incident.
It wasn't something we had at the beginning. And frankly, Sarah, who we were referencing, was one of the main movers for this, because we said we wanted to make as complete a product as possible. It's not something traditionally that law firms get into, and we call them incidental costs. But we decided to add them because we wanted to, look, if I'm going to do it, I want the best product. I'm not a second best kind of guy. I'm not interested. Our firm, everybody who's worked for me knows the phrase committed to excellence. We very much feel that way. I won't accept second best. And these things we really needed to add to make it to be the best plan. I know that legal defense is what people really want. They want to be sure. I know what they want. I've been speaking at gun shows for over 25 years, the Crossroads of the West. There's a guy named Bob Templeton. He's the owner of that show. It's the largest gun show. I'm the only guy he lets speak at that show for like 20 years. And so I've been speaking to the pro-gun, Second Amendment community. Like, I know what they want. I know what they're worried about. They're worried they're going to use their firearm, and some crazy prosecutor is going to go after them, and they're not going to be able to afford to go to trial, and they're going to have to settle, and they're going to lose their gun rights and all of that. That's why we created this program. People want to be sure that somebody's got their back if they get charged. I got a law firm, happy to do it. That's what we do. So we added those bells and whistles on there, but I know the prime mover is the defense, right? Because if you lose your liberty, nothing else matters. Liberty, there's nothing more important than freedom. There are things equal. I think your health is equally important. Without your health, your freedom doesn't get you very far either. But you got to have your freedom. It's more important than money. It's more important than everything. You want to live a good life, you got to be free.
So I have one more question for you. What if someone is a felon? They're a white collar, they've been convicted of a white collar felony, or even decades before a burglary or a robbery or whatever, and they're not supposed to be carrying a gun. Do you represent those people, or will you allow them to contract with you?
The answer is yes. We don't exclude prohibited possessors. Part of the reason for this is there's a lot of good people who don't even know they're prohibited possessors, right? You got some little crazy domestic violence. You threw the tuna casserole 20 years ago. You got into an argument. The judge said, sign here and I'll let you out of jail. You didn't even realize you pled guilty to some little disorderly domestic violence. And then maybe this was long before Bill Clinton and company got the Lautenberg Amendment through. You weren't a prohibited possessor, but since they made that retroactive, now you're a prohibited possessor. You didn't even know. People come into my office all the time and they say, hey, I went to buy a firearm from an FFL and I went through the background check. They said I was denied. I said, well, what happened? They said, well, I had this thing 30 years ago. Where was it? I don't know. I think it was Nebraska. Which court? I don't know. Like, you got to track this stuff down. So there's a lot of people who really don't know. And also there are people who think they had their firearms rights reinstated, who are incorrect about that as well. We just simply don't exclude it. If you can check those three boxes, and I should also say, there's sometimes are ancillary charges, right? Imagine you get involved in a self-defense shoot, and then you get charged with simply having a firearm in a prohibited place as another felony. We handle that as well, no problem. As long as it's connected to the original thing, you can't pick and choose what charges in the indictment you're going to defend. We just get in there and represent people. We're not looking for reasons to deny people. If anything, we're looking for reasons to get out there and show people what we can do.
Was that not something that happened in the Alan Cawley case, where I don't remember what the initial charge was, but was he convicted of a lesser charge of having a firearm in a restricted place or something like that?
Yeah, that's right. The Alan Cawley thing wasn't something we were looking for. Somebody told us about this case. Some people might not know. This guy was a member of United States Concealed Carry Association. He was involved. He was in a mall. He had his firearm, a place you're not supposed to have firearms. And some idiot, a prankster, had a cell phone, and he started putting it in this guy's face. And it said some ridiculous thing on it. And Mr. Coley looked at it, didn't want anything to do with it, kind of walked away. And the prankster kept following him. Mr. Coley pulls out a firearm. The whole thing's on video. Pulls out a firearm and shoots the prankster. Fortunately, the prankster didn't die, but Mr. Coley immediately calls the USCCA for help. And we didn't know anything about this until somebody contacted us and said, hey, there's a prosecutor in this case who, this Mr. Coley case, and Mr. Coley is being represented by a public defender. And the prosecutor just filed a motion to get information from USCCA allegedly about that phone call. I'm not exactly sure because I don't have the motion. It was denied. We found out later the reason it was denied was because the prosecutor filed it late. But imagine the prosecutor files it on time. This is another problem, right? You call one of these non-law firm companies and then you spill your guts and tell them what happened. There's no attorney-client privilege there. What if that prosecutor had gotten a recording or found out who the person was on the other end of that phone, who's not a lawyer, calls that person, says, I'm going to depose you. I'm going to maybe even pull you in and put you on the stand for the prosecutor. Mr. Coley said this, that, and the next thing. You can't talk to people who are not lawyers after incidents like this. So we didn't know what happened. We just started asking questions. In fact, lots of the 2A community started saying, why is Mr. Coley, a USCCA member, being represented by a public defender? And USCCA didn't answer the question. They put out a couple of videos. They never said anything about it until fairly recently. After the case is over, Mr. Coley got convicted on the shoot, which was very interesting and good lawyering. I actually spoke to Mr. Coley's public defender, who was very happy to speak to me, by the way, at the beginning. And he said, yes, as soon as the case is over, I'll come talk to you. I said, yeah, I want to interview you, talk to you about the case. He said, great. Spoke to him a few times, always very friendly. And then USCCA took a lot of heat for this, as you can expect. Why is Mr. Coley being represented by a public defender? They wouldn't answer the question. Until just recently, they came out with allegedly an email that was written by Mr. Coley. A lot of people have a lot of questions about this email. Essentially, it says, Dear Tim Schmidt, I want to let you know I'm a member in good standing, as if he wouldn't know that. And I chose the public defender. He did a good job for me, and I'm still a member in good standing. A lot of people looked at that email and say, wow, that's awful strange. They put a video out saying, well, this essentially ends it. We said, well, there's a lot more questions here. We asked a whole bunch of questions about this case. And of course, they're still unanswered. USCCA has not answered, as of the date of us reporting this, have not answered. So I'm intending to write a letter to Tim Schmidt, very friendly, nice, just saying, what happened? We'll be very honest and transparent about it. What happened? When did you ever offer the guy a private attorney? Did you pay for his investigator? Did you pay for an expert? Did you do the things that you promised to do? So we're going to hopefully get to the bottom of it. I don't know if they're going to answer my letter or not. But all of a sudden, Mr. Coley's public defender has stopped returning my calls and won't speak to me any longer. So it's awful strange.
That is strange. Let's just back up for a second. You raise a really interesting point when you mentioned not a good decision to be speaking with anybody other than your attorney immediately after you're involved in a shooting of some sort. When my Texas concealed carry license expired, we have reciprocity, Florida and Texas. I went and got my Florida concealed weapons permit, and the instructor was a 30-year Port Orange detective. And he mentioned that their union and many police unions have negotiated that if an officer is involved in a shooting, they are to whisk them away to the hospital to make sure that they're okay. They're not having a heart attack. They don't have any injuries, those sort of things. And that gives the union time to dispatch an attorney to make sure that they're not being questioned while they're under duress, high level of anxiety. And his advice to all of us who were in the course that night was that, God forbid, but if you're involved in a shooting, call 911 first, obviously. And then when the first responders get there, tell them, I'm having chest pains. I need an ambulance. I need to get to the emergency room. And while either you're en route to the emergency room or in the emergency room, then reach out and call your attorney or self-defense insurance and just get away from that situation while you're under that high level of anxiety. And you say something that could be completely innocuous, but twisted and used against you by some aggressive DA.
I do a lot of expert witness work, and I see something all the time, and that is that people who were in the right or believe that they were in the right, and most people do, even if they're convicted or are charged, they believe they were right. They want to convince that they believe that if they just tell their story, they'll go home. And it's sort of like being in a deposition where you're talking to the other attorney and you're thinking, well, I have the facts on my side here. I'm going to explain that and the case will go away. No, their entire purpose is to get you to say something that will hurt you or that will change something. Even if you're in the right and you think that you're right, you will not convince them. What is going to happen is going to happen. Never, ever, ever, ever talk. That's my personal advice.
Shut up.
Shut up. Thank you so much for saying it, because I was going to say it. I can't tell you how many cases we've had in our office where we've said, wow, this could have been a great case had the person just kept their mouth shut, because there's so many reasons for this. First of all, if they're not recording you, how do you know they're going to write down what you said accurately? Do you want to risk years of your life on this? Also, you were talking about Dr. Jen earlier. You were just involved in a shoot. This is the worst possible time to be trying to make a statement where you're not leaving out important details. You're being precise with what you're saying. Like, this statement is going to be used against you 2 years later when you're in trial. And if you forgot anything, that prosecutor is going to have a field day with your statement. And so it's just a horrible idea. You're not going to talk yourself out of this. The police are going to look at all the evidence and make their decision. Plus, people think if you keep your mouth shut and you say, oh, I want my lawyer, somehow this is going to come into your trial. It does not come into your trial.
It cannot by law. It cannot.
Right.
They cannot use it by law.
Right. If that police officer says on the stand, I asked the defendant what happened, and the defendant said, I want my lawyer, I'm remaining silent. What's going to happen is the defense attorney, if the defense attorney is not sleeping, is going to, excuse me, Judge, could I approach? And we're going to go up there and I'm going to say, Judge, that witness just commented on my client's Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. I want a mistrial and want the case thrown out with prejudice. And that's going to be the argument. And if the judge looks over at that prosecutor and makes a decision that this cop did it intentionally, if you got a veteran cop or something, there's a chance the case could be thrown out with prejudice. You're definitely, I don't want to say definitely, because they'll do whatever they can do to save the case, but you got a good chance of a mistrial and starting over again. So it's not going to be used against you. There isn't a downside. And if you want to say something, let your lawyer say it, or let your lawyer at first go through all the evidence. Look, I've done press conferences on cases before, after I've seen all the evidence, after I've seen what all the witnesses are going to say and all that. Then if you want to make a statement, fine. So I had a big debate with Massad Ayub on this point. And Massad takes, he's not a lawyer, he's a very well-known use of force expert, and Mas takes the position that you should make a statement to the police. But of course, I got him to admit in the debate I had with him, he assumes you're in a good shoot. I said, well, what if you're not in a good shoot? He says, well, I train people, so they should all be in good shoots. I said, people make mistakes. You want to risk decades of your life? It's just keep your mouth shut. I tell people people want advice that applies to every situation. It's very difficult to give advice that applies in every case. I tell people, look, if human life is in danger, 911's got to be called. If you could get somebody else to call, even better. If not, you call. The only thing you got to say is, look, please send help. If you got to say there's been a shooting, certainly don't say I shot someone or anything like that. There's been a shooting. Here's the address. Please send help. Goodbye. And then your job
hang up.
Is hang up and then survive the first encounter with the police, which means do not present as a threat. That's right. Maybe on the ground. Damn sure that gun shouldn't be anywhere near you, because those officers are going to show up with an attitude of, I'm going home and I'm not taking a risk. If you got a gun in your hand, big mistake. Don't do that. Let your lawyer deal with the case and sort it out later in court. Keep your mouth shut.
And a lot of people who are involved in these are very nice, good, honest people. And like, one of the first things they say is, I'm sorry. Don't say stuff like that. One of my favorite scenes in My Cousin Vinny is when they come in and suggest that he shot the cop. He's like, I shot the cop. I shot the cop. Like,
Question
and they
mark.
use it verbatim.
Right.
He said it
right.
twice. I shot the cop.
Oh, I've seen stuff like this. Look, I've been doing this 30 years. So I've seen stuff like this over and over again. It's very hard to think of a situation where somebody made a statement and actually helped themselves. Okay, look, the best case scenario, maybe you can avoid the arrest in some cases. But if the chances of you screwing up the case are so great, deal with the police will say you might be able to beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. Okay, fine. Take the ride down to the station. Don't take a chance at screwing up your case. That's the thing that can affect your life.
And honestly, if there's not a good case, you're going to go home a lot sooner if you just don't make a statement. Just say, I don't want to make a statement without my attorney. I'm in a state of shock, whatever. You don't even have to say that. But if they don't have enough to hold you and make an arrest at that time, you're going home until their investigation.
You can pretty much put these shoots in three categories, right? There's the clearly good shoot. I've had many of these. We had one in our office not too long ago. Our guy shot and killed another human being. He wasn't charged. Everything was fine. Everything was great. If it's a clearly good shoot, look, unless your name is Rittenhouse or something like that, it's not a high profile case or something, you probably aren't going to get charged. Now, I know there might be some exceptions in the crazy, very left, very woke states, but probably you're not going to get charged if it's a clearly good shoot. But then there's the clearly bad shoot. If it's a clearly bad shoot, you better hope you got AOR because no one else is going to help you. They're going to say it's a criminal act. It's a clearly bad shoot. You're out the door. At least that's my impression and my opinion from reading their contract. And then there's where most of them are, an arguable shoot. So we're going to defend you with AOR. But if you're in one of these other programs and an arguable shoot, the first thing you're worried about is that insurance company is going to come down and say, yeah, we don't think it's a criminal act. We're going to back you. But in an arguable shoot, think about it. Your lawyer is going to tell you, you might win, but you might lose. Now, if you hear that from your lawyer, you're likely to take a plea. And as we discussed at the beginning, if you take a plea, if you're with some of these other companies, they tell you themselves, all coverage ends. Like, who wants to be in this position? So this is really the reason why we're doing attorneys on retainer. To my knowledge, we're the only law firm in the nation that's got a nationwide program like this. I don't think we have any competition.
Now, here's a couple questions that I've got on the plea portion. Are we talking about taking a plea at any time, or are we talking about taking a plea in contravention to your attorney's advice? What if your attorney is telling you, look, your only chance here is to take a plea?
You're asking for my program, or you're asking about the other programs?
Oh, I'm asking your opinion here mostly for the other opinion or the other programs. But
look, I can only tell you what we do. The client has to be first. Okay, no matter what, we're lawyers first at my firm. Our job, and this is what I tell clients when I meet with them. I say, look, my job is essentially to get you two pieces of information. Here's what you need. Number one, what does this thing look like when it goes to trial? Like, what are your chances we can actually pull the thing off, right? We got to have a full discussion about that. You got to know what it looks like if we're going to trial. And if you lose, what's likely to happen? Like, you need that information. I never know that at the beginning, but you got to have that. The second piece of information you need is, what is the best plea offer you're ever going to get on this case? Like, when we hit the bottom of the barrel, we beat the prosecutor up, we've gone to the supervisor, we've thrown everything at him that we can. We're at the point in the case where they say, Mark, you better not call me back one more time. Take it or leave it. That's it. I don't care. And then they slam the phone. Okay, fine. We've got the best deal. Here's the best deal. My job is to make sure that client makes an informed decision because they're the ones that got to do the time, not me. Whatever they choose to do, I'm going to engage. I work for them. Now, if I think they're going to do something really ridiculous, right, then I'll work them as hard as I can. My job is to make sure I'm also a counselor. And I've been through this many times, doing it 30 years. I don't want you to make a dumb decision. But at the end of the day, you're a big boy, big girl. If you're fully informed, you say engage, we're going to engage. I will tell you this. The only trials I have ever lost in my entire career are situations where people have gone to trial against my advice. So when I say to clients, why are you paying me if you're not going to take my advice? But if you don't, I will, to be fair, I will also say clients have gone to trial against my advice and we've won. So that has happened too, because juries can be unpredictable. That's a big part of the advice. So for us, it's up to the client. You can take a plea anytime you want. You can take it early on. You can take it later. And sometimes it makes sense to take it early. I've had cases where haven't discovered the full extent of the client's record, or they don't know about some witness that's going to be really bad. They've offered some plea based on ignorance or something. Sometimes it makes sense to take that plea and move on. Maybe they don't know there's a gun involved or something. Like, anything could happen. So it's up to the client. But they want to go to trial. We walk back and I say, hey guys, it's on. And then my team huddles. We do every case at my law firm as a team. You get every lawyer at my firm. We staff them all together. We work them all together. You'll get 2 of them in the courtroom from my firm, and then you'll get a local attorney if it's an out-of-state case. You got 3 lawyers on the case. We do everything. I tell people this. I say, I will defend you exactly the way I'd want to be defended if it was my freedom on the line. And you should get an opinion of how I feel about freedom just based on the name of my law firm. If you want to talk freedom issues, I'm all over that. I care about
and I think Mike's question was really good, because the analogy is with medical malpractice firms. If you go against their advice, they can drop you, they can withdraw from the case. This whole thing is about feeling safe and in control, knowing what's going to happen, knowing that you are driving the ship. And I just don't think that you can do that with any of the insurance companies out there. I just don't
want to love them all together, but from the ones I've reviewed, and you can look again, you go to attorneysonretainer.us, and if you click on any of the other programs, I've done reviews of many of these other programs, and they're not fancy. It's just me reading their contract saying, here it is, page this, section this, here's what it says. I do that over and over again.
So, Mark, how do your costs compare to, say, USCCA?
My costs? You mean
or the cost for a client? What is the cost of the client for you versus
cost for
USCCA?
membership?
Oh, and to join, I understand. Well, for us, it's $100, one-time, non-refundable, that gets us to open the file. We got to do some things because we're a law firm, so we charge $100 one time, and then it's $35 a month. Cancel anytime. But we also have a family program. So if you sign up someone in the family, and again, we're not fussy about this. You got to be related to them. It don't have to be in the same house. Then it drops to $25 per person. You can add as many people on in your family. So essentially, it's $100 to sign up. And then if you're in the family, if you sign up with a family member, $25 for as long as you want to keep the program.
So one of the other things that Sarah told me that I found very intriguing and awesome is that your firm even covers police officers and in the line of duty incidents. And I assume as long as the person is CONUS, that would cover military as well, right? If you're within the continental United States.
Yes. What we say is on duty coverage. Here's how we word it. And we could probably take this away, but here's what it says. It says, we'll cover you if the incident happens and you're on duty. Doesn't matter, you're a police officer, whatever, if you're charged, if you meet the other criteria. But if you have another coverage, like say a fraternal order of police or something, they give you a defense attorney, then we're second chair. But I can tell you, I'm not really a good second chair. It just doesn't work out that way. I mean, I've been second chair a few times in my life. I generally am the alpha in the room. So I'm going to make sure that person gets a good defense. And if they don't provide anybody, then no problem. We handle it first chair. So I've represented many police officers over the years. I've also sued many over the years. I tell people I am neither pro-police officer nor anti-police officer. I am very pro good cop and very anti-bad cop. And that's how I see it. But everybody gets a defense in the United States. We're real criminal defense lawyers. Some people have tried to ding us a little, say, oh, Mark, you're representing criminals. Damn sure we're representing people accused of crimes. It's a free country. And if the government's going to accuse somebody of a crime and put them in a cage, you're entitled to a free trial. And our job is to make damn sure they dot the I's and cross the T's before they put a human being in a cage, period.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to say it. You haven't paid me to say this. I haven't been able to talk to you about maybe sponsoring Lifeline, but I'm totally sold. I gave up my insurance with USCCA when I found out that they knew where I lived. They knew I was in Washington, but they failed to tell me that they don't cover people in Washington, which I thought was really, really shady. And I'm not bashing USCCA. I think that they do a lot of things really, really well. I think that their education portion of it is really good.
Excellent.
I like that they would potentially cover a judgment against you in a civil case. All of those things are really good. I see a role for it. But there are just so many problems, so many things that could come up where you're not covered, like you've been at the bar or you're carrying and you weren't supposed to be or whatever. There are just so many instances that I can see that for a primary legal coverage, I don't see that as the best route. I see your firm as the best route. And I know that my husband and I will both sign up.
Thank
Mike,
you.
do you want to weigh in on this before I do? Because I have some very specific thoughts based on what Jen just said.
I do have a couple of questions that I want to continue to add on. So I'm a US Law Shield guy,
Okay.
and I walked into US Law Shield eyes wide open, understanding that there are certain limitations on there because I travel a lot. I travel all over the country, and I needed somebody that was going to cover me in pretty much any state that I'm traveling to. I understand that there's some ups, there's some downs in the whole situation, but one of the big questions that I wanted to touch on that is a downside to US Law Shield is the point with gun-free zones, right? Because they won't cover you in an area where you're not supposed to be carrying. Fine, I get that, I understand that, but are we talking about legal gun-free zones, or are we talking about private property gun-free zones? And I want to go back to I want to cite the Elijah Dickinson situation, where he was in a mall that was listed as a gun-free zone, and the owners, I guess, after the shoot, the owners were like, "Nope, you're cool." So can we discuss that?
Sure, you can discuss anything you like. I'm happy to answer any questions you want to ask at all. I will point out I have done a review of US Law Shield. People can
Yeah, I know, I got it up right here.
Well, on my website, gun-free zones are out. Criminal acts, sorry. Domestic violence, sorry. And you don't get to pick your lawyer. Now, if that sounds like a good deal, then that's fine. I'm sure they have other good training and things like that. And there are good people at all of these programs. But I'm just saying there are limitations of insurance companies, right? They can't cover criminal acts. So I don't know. I can't speak. It would be too far for me to go to speak on how that insurance company is going to interpret their own contract, right? But in the wake of the Bruin decision, right, where states now, especially left-wing states like California, Maryland, and New York, and New Jersey, and Hawaii, those kinds of states are essentially seizing on the language about sensitive areas and trying to say, essentially, oh, the whole state is a sensitive area. The whole city is a sensitive area. Look, I think this is eventually going to be struck down. The court we have right now, the Supreme Court, is very pro 2A. But until it is, right, it's a gun-free zone. So if you have a problem in one of these areas, and I think that, and again, I'm speculating here, if it's private property, like a store, and the store says no guns allowed in the window, I think that wouldn't be unreasonable for an insurance company to say, sorry, this is an area where you're not allowed to have a firearm. We're going to decline coverage. Now, does that mean they will? I don't know. I can't speak to that. But I wouldn't want to be in a position where something could happen, and I don't know if I'm going to be covered. And maybe more importantly, like for me, again, I just try to put myself in the position of somebody in one of these programs. Like, who's my lawyer? Like, they get to pick the lawyer. Now, there are insurance defense contracts out there in areas in the law. They notoriously pay nothing, very low, in terms of what they pay. The top lawyers, look, I charge $6.50 an hour right now, and we're raising that to $8.50 an hour soon. They're not going to pay. I don't think they're going to pay that rate. I think insurance companies generally pay lowball rates, right? Because they don't know how much they're going to have to pay. You go to trial, could be a huge number of hours, and then it could be an appeal after that. So I don't know, but I would just say to people, read the contract. Here's what I want. I want people to compare and contrast and have accurate information on my program in their program. And if they want their program, that's fine. Lots of people have said, Mark, can I get both programs? We don't care. We'll defend. If they bring another lawyer to the table and that lawyer wants to fight, get in the trenches and fight along with us in the war, bring it on. No problem. Happy to do it.
But they're going to have to be second seat behind you. Huh?
I'm in second chair. It's just not, I'm just not good at that. I don't know.
Will you still cover someone? Let's say you have someone who's a contractor or even an active duty soldier who knows that they're not allowed to bring a gun on post. They know
Federal
that you're not allowed to.
installations, it's a completely different set of rules.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
So, but hold on. Let me finish my question. So that you're not supposed to have a gun. You bring it on post. You're in your workstation. There's an active shooter that you need to take down. You're justified in this self-defense. How do you still cover that person on that whose incident occurred on a federal military base?
If the case goes to the federal court and it's a civilian case, no problem at all. If it's a UCMJ case, then we have to think about it.
Yeah,
I
see.
have that.
So a contractor you would cover, an active duty soldier you could not.
I'm not even saying I wouldn't. If I could make that work, I think it would be fun to do that. So like, look, we like to represent people. If I could get myself a good local counsel, and I don't know what the rules are, but if I could get into the military court and argue alongside with the UCMJ attorney, then I'm happy to do it. I just don't know how much help I would be in that forum because I've never done a case in the military courts. But our contract doesn't say we do it, but look, we like to deliver more than we promise. I mean, we're not confused at our firm about why people sign up in attorneys on retainer. They want to make sure they got a lawyer. We're not confused about the fact that if we start declining people for ridiculous reasons. Look, if we've had some people, if they call and the incident has already occurred, sorry, you don't get to do something and then sign up. I'm not going to go that far. But if it's remotely close and it's in the ballpark, we're all over it. We're not interested in declining people. Again, it really doesn't cost me very much for me to sick my team on them. We got some incidentals and things like that. But in terms of what we're receiving just from people paying their $35 a month, for me to cover the expert, and by the way, I want the best expert I can possibly find. I want the best investigator. I'm not trying to lowball these people. I want these people. I want these guys kicked ass for me. We are trying to bring, I said to my team today, we're trying to bring the Avengers or the Justice League. That's the kind of defense we want to bring on the case.
So a couple notes that I've made here, and some of it relates to some of Jen's questions and Mike's as well. But just as a quick statement, if we're comparing, let's say, AOR versus USCCA, US Law Shield, what comes to mind is the first thing in life you do is decide what you want. The second thing you do is decide what you're willing to give up to get it. So everything has its pros and cons. However, I can't remember exactly what Jen said, but it tweaked me to write this down. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I am not an attorney. I didn't have significant assets, or I lived in a state like Texas or Florida where homestead laws are rock solid. You cannot take my home away from me. I'm going to go for AOR myself because I want great legal representation without risk, and I know that my home's protected by the Homestead Act. If, however, I want to protect myself from legal matters as well as civil, or criminal as well as civil, I think I'd go for both, to be honest with you. I think I would take AOR for the legal representation because you got to work on your energy level a little bit, Mark, but you're getting there. You're not too bad. A little bit more. I want my attorney to be a little bit more aggressive, but
I really honestly wish that you would come out, share yourself with us.
It's a work in progress, right, Mark? My point is that if, on the other hand, I do have assets and therefore I have disposable income, I'm going to go AOR and rely on you for my defense from a criminal standpoint. And I want some other form of insurance. And I don't know if it's USCCA, US Law Shield, CCW Safe, because I just don't know. But I would want that additional layer of insurance. And the one thing I can say with regards to the USCCA, I know a bunch of people who are there. They're really, really decent people. They love what they're doing. They feel like they're doing the right thing for the gun community, and they do excel at training. Yep. Some people have said otherwise. My experience is different, each to their own. So now that that's out of the way, just out of curiosity, because you raised a point with Alan Cawley as far as him. It looks like USCCA dropped them, but then this weird email comes out of nowhere. So Alan Cawley aside, is there anybody else that you're aware of who's been dropped by USCCA or somebody else where they've just said, hey, this is criminal activity, too bad, so sad, you're on your own?
Well, since you asked the question, there's the Kayla Giles case. Kayla Giles is another one. And this one, we actually did speak with the lawyer. I'm not intimate with the facts of this case, but she was involved in a shooting. There was a death. She was a member of USCCA. I think she had the top tier. She called. They said, no problem, we'll cover it. They paid $50,000 to an attorney. I actually spoke with that lawyer, and that lawyer told me, Mark, I reviewed the case. This is a lawyer who's been practicing just a couple of years more than me, so I think he was about 32 years of practice, real criminal defense lawyer. He said, Mark, it wasn't a perfect case. We never get perfect cases, but this was a very defensible self-defense case. I was very excited about it. I don't know why USCCA pulled the plug and decided not to defend her anymore. So they refused to pay any more money. They paid an initial $50,000. He thought it was a good case. They then dropped her. She went to trial. I don't know if she had a public defender, but she got convicted. And then she sued USCCA and said, you guys were supposed to provide an attorney. Now, this is an easy lawsuit because she was convicted. Sorry, criminal acts are excluded, suit dismissed. And that was the amendment. Who knows if she would have been convicted had she had a proper defense? I don't know. But look, you can't just take the easy ones, right? You got to take the hard ones. Every time somebody is charged, there's a significant person on the other side who's a lawyer or a grand jury thinks that this case at least has a reasonable likelihood of conviction. Just a quick point on the insurance, because on the other side of this, because my civil department is getting ready to drop a video, and what they're going to say is, look, essentially, everybody knows about the criminal side and it's getting all the attention, but I want to let you, we are prepared to defend these civil cases. My civil attorney is very, very ferocious himself. And he doesn't like the fact that people are going to assume that they're going to have a judgment at the end of his work. So he's going to drop a video about this. But I do want to make this point. We get people who come into our law firm who want to bring such lawsuits. And the first question we ask always is there any money to go after? If there's no money to go after, ain't gonna be no lawsuit. So people don't understand that insurance policy sometimes is like a dangling piece of red meat out there for the plaintiff's lawyer. It is an encouragement to bring the case. You were making the point, Chris, about Homestead and other things. We call people like that judgment proof. If you don't have significant assets, plaintiff's lawyer is not likely to bring a case that's going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars out of their pocket, the lawyer's pocket, to fund that case on the hopes that they're going to be able to get a judgment that the person is not going to discharge in bankruptcy. So what I'm saying is these cases aren't brought all that often unless there's an insurance policy there. Gotcha. Then you've encouraged that plaintiff's lawyer to bring that case. I'm just telling you how from the inside things work at law firms and how plaintiffs' lawyers think. If you give it a little bit of thought, you'll see that makes a lot of sense.
I agree. But Chris, you had talked about that. If you don't have a lot of assets, you may not need both. If you do, you may not want to even get that type of insurance. You can get umbrella policies that will cover you. And that way you're not advertising it. You're not. Yeah. But anyway, I don't, for me, the bottom line is that I want peace of mind. When I put in an order in the emergency department, I want to know that someone is carrying that out. I don't want to have to go back and look at did they do that? Did they not do that? Is the patient getting the medicine they need? Are they not? My whole world is about peace of mind. I want to know if I purchase a product or retain an attorney, am I going to get what I need when I need it and not worry about it? Just put that aside and not have that in the back of my mind, not have trigger hesitancy or defense hesitancy because I'm worried. Am I going to be covered? Am I not? I just want that out of my mind. I think that what you're bringing and what you've created is really fantastic, Mark.
We're excited about it because it's truly a win-win. That's what we call these at our firm. We say win-wins. If somebody signs up, we say we got another win-win because, like I said, I don't do any deals that aren't win-win. We're excited about defending people. I got a team that I've assembled that is pumped up about defending people. And what we have on the other side are people like you who are, generally speaking, competent, responsible firearms owners who just want to know that if they get into one of these things, they're going to have a team that's going to bend over backwards and rush to their defense and is going to go to the mat for them. I can't promise that we're going to win it at trial. I don't know how it's going to turn out. We we can only work with the facts we have, right? If you blew it, you made a mistake. I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to say we got problems here. We can only work with what we got, but we are damn sure going to defend our clients exactly the way I'd want to be defended myself. If you were in our firm meetings and you heard what I always say to my team about how we act at our firm, and I just want to say too, we're a very high character place. I hire people based first on character, second on other things. Because if you don't have high character, you are not eligible for work at my firm. If we have a trust problem with you, if I can't take you at your word, out the door. I tell people, live however you want. We're the attorneys for freedom. We're pushing live and let live. But if I can't trust you, I cannot have you at my law firm. So that's how we operate. My character is more important to me than money. I will make less money before I sacrifice anything about my character or the integrity of my law firm that I built over 27 years. We're the real deal. We bring what we bring, and I know what we bring. And we are attempting right now to put together the very best team that you can possibly have in a self-defense incident. Can we get you off the case? Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to give you the straight advice. I'm going to treat you exactly the way I'd want to be treated. I don't want some lawyer BSing me and telling me the case is either better or worse than it actually is. You need an accurate read on that case. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing. I hope people research my law firm. Check out the Attorneys for Freedom. We didn't just wake up and call ourselves I got speeches from 10, 20 years back where I'm talking about freedom. That's why our firm is named the Attorneys for Freedom. It's not just a slick marketing name. I care more about freedom than I do money. That's what Live and Let Live is about. And I know we don't have a lot of time to get into it, but maybe just a little plug for this nonprofit organization we put together. Me and a whole bunch of people around the world have said enough with this crap. We believe in the phrase live and let live, and we're serious about it. And we want to unite the good people of the world together around this phrase live and let live. We got a legal principle. Don't aggress. Do whatever you want. You're in charge of your body, property, money, and time, but do not aggress against other people. And then we have a suggestion in the moral world. Be an excellent human. What does that mean? Act with the highest of character. Bring the very best version of yourself. Be open-minded and tolerant and civilized. We don't have to call each other names if we disagree. We can agree to disagree in civilized ways. Let's get back to building high levels of trust with other human beings. We're about those kinds of things because what we want to do is optimize human happiness and well-being and minimize suffering around the world. And we're pushing that narrative because we think it's time to return to high character and making your word mean something. And we can't get to peace. Freedom we can get to if we stop aggressing. But peace, we got to act a little bit better towards each other. We're all going to die soon. We're all going to die soon.
Nobody's getting out alive.
Let's treat each other as brothers and sisters. Even if we look different, we live different, whatever. It's okay. If we disagree, we're here for a short time. Can we just love each other? We talk about brotherly love. We need to start practicing it. If you like that, check out liveandletlive.org. Help us change the world.
We're going to put all these links down below, Mark. So links to your firm, links to your self-defense coverage, links to Live and Let Live. Couple quick comments. I want to just back up ever so slightly. I spent a significant part of my career working with companies to discover why they do what they do. And I know the plural of anecdote is not data, but I can tell you the actual data from my work was that approximately 1/3 of the companies that I worked with, and these ones were for a short period of time, their sole purpose is to make money. And okay, that's fine. I didn't carry on with them. I typically excused myself from the engagement at that point. But the most successful companies out there always look at money as a byproduct of what they do. It's a result of what they do, which is interesting that you voiced something so similar, pardon me. The other part specific to the Live and Let Live is that, and Mike and I have discussed this at length, we've been witnessing this epic struggle between those of us who just want to be left alone and those people who can't leave other people alone and want to impose their ideology on the rest of us. And
you sound like my friend Ernie Hancock. Ernie, any chance?
No, I don't.
One
But
of his favorite sayings: "Those who want to be left alone, and those who just won't leave them alone."
correct. So here's the thing is you bring an interesting piece of the puzzle to the table and live and let live, because when we look back through history, whenever there's a group that just wants to be left alone, if they don't stand up, they get steamrolled.
Yep.
And we've been steamrolled for the past 30, 40
Yes.
years now.
We got to get together. We got to bind together. The heck with what you believe, how you live. Can we just live and let live?
We have to do we have to do something different. Yeah, we have to do something different, or we're going to get the same results.
Yes.
So Mark, I got something completely unscheduled here, and I'm sorry for stealing your thunder, Mike, pardon me, is that normally when we do these panels, Mike poses a question from one of the decks called Conflicted. So these people invented this game. They've got these cards that have questions on them. They really expose people's morality or lack thereof. And our audience loves it, and they comment down below. So I've got a question here from the Conflicted Deck Survival Scenarios. I'm going to put a picture of this up at the beginning of the video so they can hear our answers at the end. But here's the question. The signs of the impending collapse have run rampant on the internet. You have been paying attention, and the collapse will begin tomorrow. You are stocking up at your local big box store on last-minute preps that your family will need. While shopping, you notice all of the people around you and you look into their baskets. No one is preparing for what will start tomorrow. Would you share your knowledge with the others? Why or why not?
This is an easy one for me. Of course, I would share my knowledge with the others. I'm going to live with honor and high character in all cases. Look, I'm going to die someday. I know that already. I'm going out with honor. I'm going out with a smile on my face, knowing I lived a good life. What that means to me is I acted with high character at all times, in all situations, especially the hard ones. That's the chance you get to step up and show who you're. It's easy to talk when the shit hasn't hit the fan. When the shit hits the fan, that's when we separate the boys from the men. That's where the Marines like me, we shine. I know you guys are Army guys and all that, and I respect the Army, but I'm hardcore pro.
I brought you a gift.
All right.
Snack time.
Enough. I'll take it. My jarhead friends will all take it, because you know what? We're proud Marines, and that's where you get to separate the men from the boys. So this is an easy question for me, and shame on anybody who answers that question different. I think living with shame like that, living without honor and high character, is not a life well lived. Period.
I couldn't agree more. Mike, do you want to weigh in?
So I am going to share, but I am going to restrict the amount of sharing that I am going to do. I'm not going to just put it out to God and everybody right then and there. I'm going to make sure that my family and my mag are properly taken care of, and then I'll move on to my neighbor.
That should be done. Look, if you're watching this channel, that should have been done a long time ago, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
Sure.
I'm in agreement with both of you. It's a pretty good feeling when that you've done something selfless that has helped other people, and that's precisely what this question is all about. In that you're sharing your knowledge for the benefit of others, and regardless of whether somebody's religious or not, that's also the values that Christians would aspire to. And this country was founded on Christian values and beliefs and principles, whether people want to admit it or not. I spent 20 years of my career polling people on their values. And even the people who said they were agnostic and atheist, when they picked from the list of values, picked the same thing that the Christians did.
Well, I will tell you, I'm a big fan of Marcus Aurelius. If you've read Meditation, where I'm coming from, I'm a big fan of Seneca. I'm a big fan of Epictetus. So if that led to where I'm coming from, that's where I bring that's why character, I think, is the one true good. I think it's the most important thing. These predate the Christians, by the way. It doesn't, not to take anything away from the Christian morality, but the Stoics were talking about this before the Christians, and Socrates was talking about it before the Stoics. These are the values about being a good human and living on them. That's what we're talking about, be an excellent human. That is what we, in fact, if you look at in Live and Let Live, if you look at when we say act with high character, you will find the 4 ancient virtues that come from Socrates and also the Stoics.
Share them with us.
Check out liveandletlive.org.
Okay.
Love what you see there.
Fair enough. Listen, Mark, we really, really appreciate your time and bringing some insight to this really important topic. People need to have the right self-defense insurance or insurances sort of thing to definitely protect them and their family and their assets. Can't thank you enough for your time, Mark. Thank you.
I wish I could give you guys a big hug. Thank you guys for what you do. It's been a really fun time here. I hope we can work together in the future. I love what you guys do. I do want to talk to somebody about getting more prepped myself for whatever's coming. I don't know. But if you can't survive it, you can't do anything on the other side of it either.
Final comment, just for the record, you did not pay Survival Dispatch to do this video. We are not affiliated with you in any way whatsoever, right?
Absolutely. No, I love what you guys do. I think it's very important. We need to take responsibility is another big thing, right? We need to be responsible and not expect that the damn government is going to take care of us.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you saying that in 2024, I'm supposed to take responsibility for my own decisions and the consequences of my decisions?
I am old-fashioned and old school just like that. I think you are responsible for your own life, including your own happiness. If you're not happy, look in the mirror. That's the reason why.
Well said, Mark.
All right, brothers. Peace. It's been a pleasure. Let me know if you guys work together on anything again.
All right. Be safe, y'all.
Bye-bye.